address. Well, I have two reasons for posting my address. One is this property is obviously not abandoned.
Yeah.
I'm living here.
Yes.
So in legal language as a corporation, if I agree to be considered a shareholder without rights, maybe they can consider it abandoned if they sign another fraudulent stock certificate, which they did. They signed a fraudulent stock certificate. Oh yeah, my case is extreme. But yours is bad too, because you know, at 77 years old, and you're doing your job well, and people are liking you. That's what makes living in a building a wonderful experience. Is that there's a real community.
I could have been there for another 7 years that I wanted to be there.
Sure.
77 off the job.
Yeah.
It was a piece of cake.
Yeah, right. Or why not be there till you're 100?
4 hours a day. I was getting exercise every day. I was walking. I was walking more than 5 miles a day. And door to door, I was working. It was only 15 minutes from my door to the work.
And you still look great, even after all this aggravation, because you really have been through a lot of abuse.
Yes.
And you've really, you know, institutions that you counted on, that you trusted, that you paid dues to.
Yes.
It's really heartbreaking.
Yes.
I know how it felt when my board president signed the stock certificate. Up until then, I felt like I would have cut him some slack and gone after the banks or big guns or whatever. But when he signed a stock certificate that invalidated mine, or tried to invalidate mine, that was it. He crossed the line then.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like catching your husband in bed with someone else. There's some things you can't forget.
Of course.
Okay. So, here it is. Your union representative, Todd Jennings, and I signed a settlement agreement, a copy of which is attached, that returned you to work here at London Terrace Towers. It was agreed that your return date was on a last chance basis, and that similar infractions could lead to your termination. Since your return on October 7th, you have violated both the terms and spirit of the agreement. I mean, wow. Bullet point. On your very first day back on the job, October 7th, you, in response to a welcome back from one of the residents, shouted that he was deceitful and hypocritical in that he helped you get fired.
Oh, excuse me. Let me stop right there.
Yeah.
Now, the one that they're talking about was the guy that Lamberti who was looking for me when he went outside.
Oh, that's probably their...
That's him. That's him.
That's probably their plant resident.
That's him. That's him.
The shocked resident told me that you talked it out, but was quite taken back by your aggressiveness. This clearly violated the terms of the settlement agreement. Next bullet point. Despite being told not to do so, you continued to write letters to, and fax copies attached, both the main office of Douglas Elman Property Management and here complaining about the settlement to which you agreed. While the settlement specified that you were to refrain from discussing the situation with residents, the spirit of the settlement was that it was inappropriate for you to discuss the previous situation with others. Next bullet point. You are extremely argumentative with the superintendent over your schedule. On October 17th, you asked for the 14th and 15th off. When you were told that it just wasn't possible that week, but that we could accommodate you the following week, you told the superintendent that you would not be at work as you had something to do. You were so belligerent that we felt compelled to send a letter to your home to clarify the situation. Copy attached. Next bullet point. On October 17th, the superintendent got a message that you wanted to take November 17th off as a something day?
Clinic day?
Clinic day. You sent a fax from a dentist that simply said you were in his office on a day earlier in the week. The superintendent called you at home and told you that you had to come to work on your Saturday evening shift as we had no one to cover the shift. You replied, "God damn you," and hung up on Mr. O'Sullivan. Doesn't seem like, it seems out of character. On November 17th, you did not show up for work, forcing Ricky something or other to work a double shift. The superintendent tried unsuccessfully to reach you all throughout the day. On November 20th, the superintendent covered your shift and left a notice in the 405 lobby that you were not allowed in the building. Instead of leaving the position, you took the notice and went to the 410 West 24th Street lobby, where you stayed from 12:30 until 1:30. Is that it?
See how they're watching me on the cameras?
Yeah, right.
See how they,
Yeah, I know that. I know that. But you can turn around and subpoena all of those.
Yes.
You know.
That's how
you can make it. You can make all this work to your advantage.
Yeah.
See, spying when you're innocent.
Yes.
What's the problem?
That's what she did.
I do not have the expectation that you were 100%. I did not have the expectation that you were 100% pleased with the outcome, but I had hoped that you would be happy to return and would put your feelings aside when at work. But Joe, your actions indicate that you are incapable of moving on from the incidents that prompted your first termination. You are openly contemptuous of your supervisors and insubordinate to reasonable regulations that other employees routinely follow. You know, it's really interesting for me to see the language, how they treat an employee working for the management company, because that's exactly how they treat shareholders.
Yeah.
They boss everybody around.
Isn't it?
I have no choice but to terminate your employment from London Terrace Towers, effective immediately. Please make arrangements with the superintendent to return your uniform items. Unless you are a guest of a resident, you are not to come to any part of the 4 residential buildings. I will contact payroll and instruct them to calculate and send you any monies owed you for time worked and unused vacation time. Yours very truly, Nancy Frawley. C.C. Steve Engel, President. Peter Finn, Real Estate Advisory Board. Todd Jennings, Local 32BJ. And Owen O'Sullivan, Superintendent. Now, even though my case is nastier with a key lock and break and entry and a stolen stock certificate and then a forged certificate, this is really bad.
Yeah.
This is really bad.
This is it. It's the whole thing.
So,
and she wrote everything. They wrote everything. Everything there, Paula, is 98% lies. Trust me when I tell you.
Yeah, I can see that.
And threatening me, and threatened, and going around with a petition, and what?
Can you do some work for me? Can you call up those CC'd people, particularly that guy on the Real Estate Advisory Board? Call these people up and say that there's a public access producer that wants their side of the story.
And who's that?
Well, I'm particularly interested in this Real Estate Advisory Board. I want to know what that is. Peter Finn.
Peter Finn.
But Todd Jennings, I'd like him too. I'd like Steve Engel. And Owen O'Sullivan, if he's not an educated man, let's not bother with him.
He's out.
Forget him.
He left.
Then let's take Todd Jennings, Peter Finn, and Steve Engel. Call them up and...
Todd Jennings, if I give you his number now, you'll never get through. You can call him all week, all month. He'll never get through. He'll never answer his phone. So where you going?
Then let's get his address, and we'll make up a letter and we'll send it by certified mail.
So it's right. Whatever his address is, to the union or his home.
Find it. Go to the union and.
Well, the union. I can get the union number and send it to there.
Yeah, we'll send him a certified letter. We'll write up a letter and.
Okay.
And say
that you can get. Engel, I don't know where he's out. He's not there anymore.
He's
not the president of the board anymore. He may be living there.
If he's living there, we want him. We don't care if he's president of the board.
No.
You see, as a human being, people can't hide behind the corporate veil.
Okay.
He made decisions. He has to be responsible for his decisions.
Yes, of course.
You see, a corporation can't make a decision.
Right.
A corporation can't change locks. A corporation can't sing a song.
Right, exactly.
All of these things only human beings.
Okay, Steve Engel, I think he still lives at that 465 residence.
Yeah.
I think he still lives there.
Right. Okay. While I have you here, can you make a few comments about the show me and Joe do? Joe Barton?
Oh, yeah.
Why you came here?
Because you got two stations. You got 1964, is it right?
1995?
1995.
Are you watching us on 1995?
I watch on both.
Really?
And then you got what's the other one?
Pot Talk with Joe Barton is Joe's show on Saturday night.
No, the one this morning you had on...
Oh, Farther Down the Rabbit Hole with
Yeah.
Paula Gloria. That's my show at 12 noon.
Yeah, 12 noon. What channel was that?
That's channel 34.
34.
Yeah.
I got 34 in the other one. I watch...
Yeah, what I really need is for viewers like you to call in and ask for me to go live. Because I'm playing against Gary Null, who's going out on WBAI.
Mhm.
And I believe he gets to go live and he gets to take calls. Why are they not letting me take calls?
Yeah, yeah.
I want to be able to, I could bring you in a nice high-def studio, we could sit together, and we could open it up and take calls from Manhattan. We would have a hot show,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We would have a really great show.
And
I mean, this is a complicated case. This is going to take more than 58 minutes to get to the bottom
naturally,
of.
sure. And there's more.
But once you have the public support behind you, once you
Yeah.
have your community behind you,
Yeah.
nothing can stop us.
Right, right.
That's what we need
But-
now.
Paul, I'll go. I gotta go. At this stage of the game, I'll go all the way. I got nothing
Yeah.
to lose. I got
Yeah.
nothing to lose. Nothing.
Right. That's
nothing,
how I feel
nothing.
too.
Because
You have everything to gain and nothing
Because-
to lose.
exactly.
They took it all from you.
because the only thing I'm asking.
Mostly your dignity.
Yes,
Mostly your
exactly,
dignity.
exactly. Because the only thing I want there is I want my back pay. I want my health benefits back in intact, and I want my pension back intact. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not asking for millions of dollars in this and that. That's all I'm asking for.
Well, maybe you should ask for millions of dollars and we'll set up a broadcast
Well,
company and you'll have your own show and you can be helping people.
Right, but on my...
You know what I mean? We learned it, Joe and I learned this on the internet when
Yes.
the internet was free.
yes.
You know?
Okay, now we're going to go a little further now. Now this is... Where do I start from? Okay, let me start from here. This is more interesting. What the heck have I have here? Joe, what do you got here? This is... Department of the Committee. Okay. Susan, okay. And they said, oh, it was a bomb. I said, oh my God. So I went to call the office, forget about it, they were gone. And I lost them, I couldn't get in touch with them. And the building was closed because of, with all that trouble that they had there. So then when it was all over, I went back to work and the company moved to New Jersey and so on and so forth. Then they closed the office altogether. Then from there I went to work at Rockefeller Center. Another gem of a place to work, you know.
You're a real New Yorker.
Yeah. And my wife was so proud of me. So I'm so proud of you. Look at this. You're going here, you're going there. And this, and these are temporary jobs, you know.
Yeah.
And then Rockefeller Center, they sold out to these other people there, and they were very, very good to me. The girls at the office, they loved it. They were wonderful. Naturally, they had to go when Rockefeller sold out, so the girls were out of the office, and then a new girl comes in, and she wasn't pleasant at all, you know. And I filled out an application, and she said, we'll get back to you. And she never got back to me, you know. Then I seen her. I went to Rockefeller Center, and I looked around, and I says, geez, I seen so many new faces. Then when I seen her, you know, I said, how come I see so many new faces and you never called me? She said, oh, we don't need you anymore. Well, who are you? You don't need me anymore, you know. So, okay, I wasn't belonging to no union or nothing, so anyway. So then I left, and I filed a claim on Rector Street. I don't know, I went there, there was a lady at the office, and just to make a nuisance case out of it, you know, I didn't belong to no union or nothing. So the girl says, what do you hate? So listen, I said, what should I put down? She said, put age discrimination. I says, good. Okay, it took a couple of years. They settled with me like it was a nuisance case. They gave me a few $1,000s. Thank you. And I left. So that took it. So now I still have to work. So
You still have to work?
Well, at that age, sure. I had to get my Social Security, you know, and so on, you know.
How old were you then?
Oh, God, I was
Your 50s?
Maybe late 50s, yeah.
Late 50s, yeah.
You know. So then from there, I met a friend of mine I used to go to a bar on 23rd Street and 9th Avenue. And there was a fella at the bar, he was drinking, and I seen on his uniform, London Terrace Towers, you know. And I was kidding him. I said, have you got a job for me? And he looked at me and says, are you Irish? I said, no, I'm not Irish. I'm Italian. He was only joking, you know. No. So he says, give me a name and phone number. So which I did. It was on a Saturday. Gave my name and phone number. And Saturday. Sunday morning, Mr. Bill Murphy from the London Terrace, he was the superintendent, he called me. That Larry, he got the message from Larry, and he said, oh yeah, he says, could you come down Monday, we'll have a chat, you know. I said, sure. So I met Mr. Murphy, Bill Murphy, wonderful gentleman, pure gentleman. As soon as he see me, I knew I had the job, and which is true, I did have the job. And as I was talking and my background, and he got so into my background that I was, you know, all my travels around the world and here and there. So, okay, so go upstairs, fill out an application, and when you fill out the application, bring it back to me. I said, okay. So I went to the second floor of the office, I filled out the application, and I gave it to the lady. She says, here. She says, okay, that's it. I says, Mr. Murphy says to bring him back the application. Oh, you know, what she said, Bill Murphy, what she was doing, and I gave it. So we sat, and so I got the job. So I was on about 5 weeks in training, you know, because we had 4 buildings. And so I was in training about 4 weeks. And then I stayed there for about, after he broke me in, and I was going here, going there, we're leaving here for vacations and what have you, so on and so forth. Okay. Then about 6 months went by. Mr. Murphy says, Joe, he said, I have to talk with you. I have to speak with you. I says, yeah. I says, Nancy Frawley, she's the president of the board, you know, and she selected you to work part-time, a steady part-time job, 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. I said, I'll give it a shot, Mr. Murphy, but I got nothing to lose. At my age at that time, I'm getting my union pension, I'm getting here, you know, and plus Virginia was getting her pension and everything, you know. I said, I'll give it a shot. But anyway, as I started, I was getting a whole loaf of bread. So I accepted that 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. Okay. So the bread went down, and I wound up a little piece of bread. And I was very, very happy with that little piece of bread. You know, the job was so beautiful, you know. So I stayed there 10 years. Perfect record. Never late, never nothing. The tenants, they adored me. The help, I was like a father figure to them. They were all young guys, you know, and they appreciated me.
Did you live in the building?
No, I didn't live there. No, I lived at my own 7th Avenue, 14th Street. This was on 23rd Street and 9th Avenue, London Terrace Towers, which is very, very...
posh place.
Yes. And so now, I was at 10 years. I worked for 4 superintendents, never no problem and everything, so on and so forth. Okay. Then they wound up, we got another one in whatever it was. We got a new superintendent. He wasn't pleasant. He wasn't well liked by the tenants and by the.
About what year would that be?
That was in 1995.
95, okay.
When I first went there, when I got the job, 1995.
And for 10 years it was nice until 2005?
That's correct.
And then the new super came in?
The new super came in. He came in between there. Yeah.
Okay.
He came in between.
Because you know the bank meltdown happened in 2008.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of financial malfeasance that was in the works a few years before.
Yeah.
So you'll see a lot of buildings, things are going nice and pleasant and good relationships, and all of a sudden everything gets strained.
Yeah. But over here, nothing, everything is perfect, 100%. You know, there's no layoffs or nothing. There's a big organization, very good. That's like Trump Towers or something. You know, they don't...
What was the organization you were working for?
Huh? The London Terrace Towers.
London Terrace Towers.
That was the name of the company.
And how many units? Oh, London Terrace
Towers.
It was a building.
Yeah.
How many units in the building?
They had 4 buildings, what they called London Terrace Towers.
Yeah.
It was 4 buildings that covered a whole block. In the middle they had London Terrace Gardens, but that was separate, you know, separate.
How many units do you think we're talking about? Maybe 400 units altogether?
In one building, you figure 250 units, 250 in one.
So 1,000 total?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
1,000. So anyway.
And what was your job exactly, 4 hours?
My job then, what I had to do was I had to relieve 4 lobby attendants for their dinner breaks. Okay, because they had no dinner break before. They had a handyman there, but he couldn't do a handyman and then relieve the other. It was impossible. So Nancy, she seen what was going on. She was the president of the board, and that's when she selected me. And I took it. So I was
is she the president of the board of all 4 buildings?
4 buildings, yeah.
That's a powerful position.
Yes, okay.
Wow.
And we were, for 10 years, we were, oh my God, we were, I respected her highly, and we got along fine, and everything went perfect. Everything for 10 years, Now, what happens is, she resigned for the board of directors, and she wound up getting a job, an office job, with Douglas Elliman, okay? As a building supervisor, management or whatever, building management, okay? Now, she was on the job, let's say, maybe about a month and a half. She fired me. After 10 years, we would hire this and that for 10 years. And she fired me as now we had a staff of 40 people. 40 people, we had a staff of 40 people. And she wrote down, because of this, because of that, and everything is there, what I have. What I'm telling you, everything is there.
Can I read this now?
If you like.
Is this a good time to read it?
Huh?
Is this a good time to read it?
If you want to.
Let me see. Okay, dear Judge Andrew Napolitano, I enjoy your program, Freedom Watch. When I listen to you, I have so much hope. I am happy that Fox News is the leading news station across the United States. 15 years of fair and balance. Judge, I am happy to be part of Fox and Friends. I am sending you some names of Fox News staff. You are all honest and direct. Judge, I am going to switch gears. In 1995, I was enjoying the American dream. I was introduced to a gentleman, Mr. Bill Murphy. He was superintendent for London Terrace Towers, 405 West 23rd Street in New York City. When I met Mr. Murphy, I knew I got the job. I gave him my background. He was very pleased. I was in training for about 5 weeks, 40 hours a week. I was doing fine, and I got acquainted with the staff and tenants. A few months went by. Mr. Murphy wanted to see me. He said Miss Nancy Crawley selected me to work part-time routine 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. This was a steady routine. Miss Frawley was president of the board of directors. I did his routine for 10 years. I had the highest regard for Miss Frawley. She was very pleasant to me, as I was to her. For 10 years I worked for 4 superintendents. I never had a problem. For the years I had a perfect record, never late, never took a day off except for vacation, sick days, and personal days. February 2005, Miss Frawley, okay, became an account executive for Douglas Elliman. You mean Miss Frawley, right?
Miss Frawley.
Miss Frawley resigned as president of the board April 7th, 2005. She fired me. She was on this job for about a month and a half. I couldn't believe what she did to me. She threw me under the bus. Now, let me see. She hired you 10 years before, right?
Right.
Then she went to work for Douglas Elliman.
Mm-hmm.
Then she stopped being the board director, or not?
She had to resign from that.
She had to resign because there'd be a conflict.
She couldn't have 2, no.
Okay, so right before she resigned, she fired you. Then she worked for Douglas Elliman.
Right before? No, she fired me when she worked for Douglas Elliman.
How could she? I thought she hired you as the board president. If she's not the board president, would she have the power to fire you?
No, she was. No, she retired from the board president and she became the management.
Right.
That's when she selected me.
Oh, I see. You mean Douglas Elliman was the management company for the building?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad I clarified.
Yeah.
She was on the job for almost a month and a half. I couldn't believe what she did to me. She threw me under the bus. May 7th, 2005 was my last day of work. Judge, you will not believe what she said about me. I'm going to send you a few pages so that you can see how she terminated me. We had a staff of 40 people. I was the only one involved in this ugly situation. Page 1, Ms. Frawley sent a letter to Mr. Todd Jennings, business agent for local 32 BJ SEIU AFL-CIO. Mr. Jennings got in touch with me and asked me how long I was working for the London Terrace. I said 10 years. He said, oh. He said, I'm going to see if I can get your job back. I said, Miss Frawley said my position is terminated because of reduction in force. I said to Mr. Jennings, I have seniority over the lobby's attendance. He said, oh no, I am going to, see if I can get your job back. Meanwhile, we will go to arbitration. So I had to wait. In the meantime, I went to EEOC. What's EEOC?
It's an equal opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was told they could not handle my case. The agent said to me, do I belong to a union? I said yes. The agent said the union is supposed to help you. I went to another agency, 46 Rector Street. I was asked by an agent what was my problem, and I explained how I was discriminated by my employer, Ms. Nancy Frawley. The agent asked me if I was in a union. I said yes. The agent said the union was supposed to help me. Judge, I had nowhere to go but wait for my union to go to arbitration between Ms. Frawley, account executive, Todd Jennings, business agent for local 32 BJ SEIU, and Mr. Sullivan, superintendent for the London Terrace, put a damper on my American dream. May 16th, I accepted a temporary shift, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I started my shift at 7 a.m. to 8:55 a.m. I was having a problem, and I had to go to the bathroom that was about 6 feet from my desk. My super was a block away. It was not possible to get in touch with him, or I would have soiled myself. I was only away for about 5 minutes. Mr. Sullivan came up to the lobby and asked me, where have you been? I said I had to go to the bathroom, or I would have an accident. He said, I don't care. You should have called me. I repeated again, I was about to have an accident. He kept raising his voice. I said, why are you hollering? He said, don't you talk to me that way. I want you to leave. I said, I came to work. He said he had someone to relieve me. Here I go again. I was fired because I went to the bathroom. I applied for unemployment and I was denied because my super filed a bad conduct against me. I went for a hearing. At the hearing I was present. Mr. Sullivan and Miss Frawley did not show. I told the Judge Coffey I had no one to represent me. Judge Coffey set up another hearing. This time I had another 20-year-old student to represent me. Miss Frawley and Mr. Sullivan were not present. Judge Coffey asked me a few questions and said that will be all. 2 days went by. Judge Coffey ruled in my favor. I received 22 weeks of unemployment money. The bad conduct charge was dismissed. Judge Coffey said my employer would have allowed me to leave my desk because of my problem for 5 minutes. Judge, I'm going to shift gears again. Within 6 months, I was fired 3 times. That has to be a record in the workplace. Ms. Frawley said the corporation made business decision to eliminate the 4-hour shift for good cause. Judge, this is not true. The cooperation does not want me to get involved with the discrimination grievance. Judge, London Terrace Towers, they are billionaires. I believe we know they do not make this business decision to eliminate 4-hour shifts. Ms. Frawley violated the company rules. The 4-hour shift, 20 hours a week, still exists today, 2012. 10 years I worked for London Terrace Towers with a staff of about 40. They were very generous to me. No one was ever laid off. Judge, in 1 year, Miss Frawley was fired. Also, the super Sullivan was fired. So Miss Frawley was fired, or she quit?
Fired in 1 year.
She was fired.
Yes.
From Douglas Elliman.
Yes.
After she fired you.
Yes.
Okay. My union, 32BJ, they also threw me under the bus. Todd Jennings, my business agent, was handling my grievance. He said we are going to arbitration. 6 months went by. Mr. Jennings said, I'm not getting my job back. I said, will you put this in writing? He said, I do not out anything in writing. I guess I do not.
I don't put anything in writing.
Yeah, okay. I faxed a letter to President Mike Fishman that I was not happy with Todd Jennings. Mr. Fishman received my letter and referred me to Mr. Dennis Johnson, my supervisor. When I met with Mr. Johnson, he had no file about me. Our conversation was verbal. He said, I don't think I can win this case with arbitration, so I'm going to dismiss the case. I said, would you put this in writing? I never received an answer. Judge, I was a dues-paying member. I was a steady part-time worker. I paid the same dues as my fellow workers who were working 40 hours a week. I was working 20 hours. My dues paid these two sleazy thugs their salary and benefits, Local 32BJ, Todd Jennings and Dennis Johnson. They acted as judge, juror, and execution. No trial, no arbitrator. I lost my health benefits. I wound up zero. Judge, I'm going to switch gear again. In November 25th, 2005, I was introduced to a lawyer, Mr. Thomas Bellow. I explained my grievance. Mr. Bellow asks for $3,500 retainer. I gave him a check for that amount. Time went by. I will call Mr. Bellow, saying Mr. Ricardo Jones, federal investigator of EEOC, said to him, you have the right to sue. Mr. Bellow said, this is what I've been waiting for. Mr. Bellow said to me that he needs $500 for court costs. I said, no problem. This is the only money mentioned. We met at my apartment. I gave him a blank check that I signed. A little time passed. Mr. Bellow said to me, Joe, I need to borrow $5,000 from you. Mr. Bellow said, this I will pay you back. And he repeated again, this I will pay you back. Believe me, I felt the jolt. He caught me in a good mood. I gave him a blank check that I signed January 21st, 2009. So that's 4 years later. Or, yeah, 3 years at least. He left with 2 blank checks. This money I gave him was my life savings. Now we have to wait for a court date. Judge, I'm sending you the checks that Mr. Bellow signed and cashed on January 21st, 2009. On June 24th, 2010, I received a letter from Mr. Bellow telling me he would not handle my case because of a full-time position he received. I answered his letter to meet with another attorney. I received no answer. I asked for my file. Still today, no file. I met with an attorney, Michael C. Barrows, and gave him my personal file and the canceled checks. Michael was not pleased with the checks, and he said he will email Mr. Bellow for my file and $5,000 he borrowed from me. Mr. Bellow called me at 5 p.m. and he said he never borrowed $5,000 from me. I said, you did borrow $5,000 from me, and he said, no, no. And I repeated again, you borrowed $5,000 from me. He said he never borrowed money from his clients. Then he said the company was offering $2,000 to $3,000. I never heard back from him. What does it mean? Then he said the company was offering $2,000 to $3,000?
To settle the case.
Oh, to settle the case.
Yeah.
I never heard back from him. I spoke to an attorney, and he said to go to small claims court. I did file a grievance, and the arbitrator ruled in my favor for Mr. Bellow to pay me $5,000 plus interest and gave him 30 days to pay. He never paid me, and I went back to small claims court. This time Mr. Bellow appeared. The judge asked me a question I did not understand. I was flat-footed. He spoke to the judge and set another court date. This time I got an attorney, Michael Barrows, and we went to court with an arbitrator, Michael Barrows. Mr. Barrows and myself Much was said that we have to wait for the results as we were leaving the court. Mr. Bello was shaking hands with the arbiter and was laughing. I found this to be strange. The results I received from the arbiter were not in my favor. I lost everything, my case and my money he borrowed from me, my life savings, my pension, health benefits. I am waiting for an answer from the State of New York Grievance Committee from the 2nd, 7th, and 13th Judicial Districts. Sincerely, Joseph Licari. That's very touching.
I'm telling you.
So you've been following my show?
Yeah.
And how did you think that I could and Joe could help you?
Well, I heard what you're saying here, you know, with how crooked these people are, and with the judges and lawyers, and the whole system itself, how crooked they are, and what they, what you should do this, you should do that, and follow through on this and follow through this, and I knocked on so many doors, and I wound up nowhere, and this is where I wound up,
Why do you think that you were initially fired by Miss Frawley?
This was a personality thing there, my dear. You know what I mean? Personality. With this Sullivan. I don't know what the deal was with this Mr. Sullivan.
But you said you got along for 10 years nicely.
With Miss Frawley.
Yes.
This guy Sullivan, he was new on the job. He came on as a super. Evidently, they knew each other from before. I think on her husband's side. Her husband, at that time, was a boyfriend, and this guy, evidently, they were friends. They were... And this is what... He was jealous of me. I was very popular, with the tenants. Very, very popular. And that's what it was. And stupid Nancy, she went for what he said, and she turned against me. And all these lies that she said. I'm going around with pamphlets to the tenants, and oh God, you have to read. I got the whole thing there.
Do you have it here? What she said about you?
Oh gosh.
I'd like to read that. Just to get a feeling, because this is very different territory.
Oh.
I don't know anything about unions, and all I know about supers is with my own super in the building.
Yeah. This is me when I was in World War II. I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow. Now, I'm really happy that Joseph saw one of my shows and he came dashing right over, because I think we need to work together more physically. There's so much illusion on the internet and on television.
And this is another. This was the same time, World War II, all these poor orphans. Every time I see that, it brings tears to my eyes. To see them innocent kids. Look the way they dress in that war-torn area.
Where was this?
That was in Barry, Italy.
Oh, I've been to Barry, Italy.
Yeah.
So you were there during World War II?
World War II, that's the picture.
Yeah, I was married to a Sicilian.
Oh, I'm Sicilian.
I know the area.
I'm Sicilian.
Yeah, Ragusa.
Ragusa, I know a lot of Ragusas, yeah.
Can you speak Sicilian?
Yeah, I get by, yeah,
really?
I manage.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Lei parla italiano, parla siciliano.
No, I didn't. The only word I learned that was mia moglie non apprezza la camera.
Oh, okay.
My wife doesn't like the room because I had money at that time.
Yeah.
We were staying in hotels.
I see, yeah.
So.
These are all the ships that I sailed on.
Oh, wow. When you were a merchant marine?
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? Here's all the ships he was on. I don't know if
got a couple of pages there.
Might not. Yeah, there's many pages.
That took me around the world.
Wonderful.
Took me around the world 2 times. That was that.
But basically your health benefits and your pension and everything is off because of some bad letter?
Yes.
And we're going to read the bad letter now?
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah.
This was my first voucher, World War II. My pay voucher.
Your what voucher?
My pay voucher from the ship on the Louisa M. Alcott.
Isn't that nice?
Yes. And I never stopped paying dues since then. Tax since then. That was that, and what else? I had something else to show you.
Well, this is going to go out in Manhattan Neighborhood Network to what I feel is the most
that's Harry Truman's letter to me, but thanking me for my courage.
Giuseppe Licari.
Giuseppe.
To you who have answered the call of your country and served in its merchant marine to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of the nation. You undertook a most severe task. one which called for courage and fortitude. Because you demonstrated the resourcefulness and calm judgment necessary to carry out that task, we now look to you for leadership and example in further serving our country in peace. And this is Harry Truman. Isn't that absolutely beautiful?
Look how old I was.
Shows up.
Look at, okay, that's that. Let me see where I can get this fraudy bit. What did I do with my
Anyway, what I'm saying is that when we go out to 650,000 households in Manhattan, that's the most important court. That's the court of public opinion.
Yes.
It's how do you stand in your community. And that's what I'm saying when you were having good relations with the people in the building.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever there is financial malfeasance, what they need to do is break up the communication in the community. If you can't find the letter, that's okay.
No, I got it here. I'm looking for my glasses.
Oh, okay.
What the heck you do? Dummy, you stupid.
Look at this. Joseph just told me he's never, ever going to give up. He's got letters here from President Barack Obama. It's beautiful that you have faith in the president, but he's the CEO of a corporation that's foreign to us.
Yeah. You know, just
part of the oops.
Something I saved, you know, it's all his name is on there. Joseph.
Let me give you a rubber band because I broke yours.
Oh.
Here's a new rubber band.
Okay. Well, Paula, you know, we'll get together with your husband.
Yeah, let's tentatively say next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
It's just about this time is a good time.
Okay, whatever, just...
And let me give you his number so you can...
Okay, write down his number. You got my number.
Yeah.
And,
what time is it right now?
What time is it? 4 o'clock?
And you came at, say, 3 o'clock?
5 after 4?
Is it already 5 after? Yeah, I have to be somewhere at 5. Let's say 3 o'clock?
For what, for next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 p.m. And if you can't make it, you call me, and if I can't, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll meet here at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. That's next Wednesday?
Yeah. And,
okay, I'll check my calendar. I don't think I got anything going on my calendar.
Yeah.
So I can write it down and...
Wonderful. And Paula Gloria.
Oh, I'm so glad I met you.
Yeah.
I said to myself, I gotta meet Paula.
I'm glad that you did that.
And sure enough, you came right through the door. I said, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
The guy says, oh, there she is. Oh,
I know.
Oh gosh.
That's great. Well, I'm going up now to CNN and Time Warner in Columbus Circle to get some footage for
okay, so you're not going to have lunch with me? Or?
No, not now, but boy, I'd sure like to.
Susan. You just wrote about, it's titled Big Bank Fail, Judge Rules Foreclosures Are Unconstitutional. And your lead-in is Judge George N. Bowden of the Superior Court in Washington State ruled against Bank of America in a foreclosure battle that ended with the non-judicial foreclosure sale under the Deed of Trust Act. What does this mean for Americans?
What this means is in Washington State, according to the Washington State Constitution, they have the Deed of Trust Act, which governs all foreclosures, and these are rules and guidelines. Now, Bank of America did not follow those rules and guidelines, so it is an unconstitutional foreclosure. And Judge Bowden ruled such and gave the homeowner, who was a gentleman named Bradburn, the ability legally to now go after damages. And since the home was already sold, he is now able to attach any monies that Bank of America incurred through their sale of the property, including any punitive or otherwise damages that he would be allotted by the court system.
So this is just one case, though. This is just one individual who won a case against Bank of America, but this is obviously symptomatic of a larger problem where he's one person. So what about all the other people now who have fallen victim to the same?
Well, this sets precedent. See, what we're trying to do in the foreclosure circles, and Scott Staffney is head of Staffney Trumbull Law Firm, who is the lead attorney in this case. What he's doing, and this is the 41st case that he has won, is he's trying to set precedent so that other attorneys across the country can then use this as secondary source of law in order to fight and keep the homeowner in their home, or that they can sue for damages in the case of Bradburn, for damages for the house being illegally sold and seized. And this is huge because statistically speaking, the amount of foreclosures successfully implemented have dropped statistically about 30% in 2013. The reason for that being is because people are standing up and they're taking the banks to court. Now, what was found in this particular case is amazing. Now, what Bank of America did was at first name the MERS system, which is the Mortgage Electronic Registration System, as the beneficiary. Well, this is a computer system. It's not a sentient being. So it can't be a beneficiary for a foreclosure. Then they changed the tactics and chose Recon Trust as the beneficiary. The problem with that is Recon Trust is a subsidiary of Bank of America, and therefore they don't have any independent thought or agenda when it comes to this foreclosure. They have a conflict of interest. So Judge Bowden found this to be true in the statements from Bank of America, following the line of the chain of command and chain of title as it went through, and found that Bradburn had been illegally foreclosed on based on the Deed of Trust Act in the state of Washington. The Bank of America did not follow the rules, and so it is an unconstitutional foreclosure. And Scott Staffney, who is the lead attorney, fought the case based on constitutionality, which is why he's won 41 cases so far.
Now, I mean, freedom is based on property and property rights. So this lawyer is using the Constitution in the courtroom. Almost a rarity these days. We see a lot of times when people go into the courtroom and they say, "Well, the law will not be allowed in my courtroom," and we see the Constitution being thrown out. So, using this as precedence, I'll go back to the question: how can the average person who's been a victim of Bank of America now capitalize on this ruling?
Give this information to your attorney. It doesn't matter if they're in Washington State or if they're in Massachusetts. Secondary sources of law are applicable. Primary sources are considered first grab, and that is within your state. But if another state, in another district, which Washington State is in the 9th district, and that includes Washington State, Oregon, and California. Now, prior to this ruling, Scott Staffney won another foreclosure case, which was in the 9th District Court, which, again, this is trend setting. And this is what needs to happen in our judicial system. Attorneys need to look at this information, all of the information on this particular case, with Bradburn and Bowden as the judge can be found at StaffneyTrumbleLaw.com. And you can read all of the complaints, all of the filings, and the judge's opinion. If you give this to your attorney, they can use that information to justify an illegal foreclosure that you may be going through in your city or town. And if it's against Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, it doesn't matter. What we need to do is get these attorneys to start talking to each other. We need some unity, because the culture of foreclosures industry is not just indicative to the banks attacking the homeowners, but there are groups of attorneys and groups of paralegals and groups of activists who are trying to get this information correlated in one central area so that we can all benefit from it and fight these foreclosures in court.
So, Susan, how many people do you believe have been affected by Bank of America that could benefit from this ruling nationwide?
When I speak to people who work in the foreclosures industry and the element of keeping people in their homes, and these attorneys like Scott Staffney, the problem is that when things were securitized in the 2008 crash, and it actually began in 2003, every single piece of property that is not owned by the government or an international body has been assumed to have been securitized. It's not just homeowners. It's every single piece of property. Now, eventually that will mean, let's say there's 320 million people respectively in the United States. That's a lot of property. It's not just affecting people who own their home. If you're renting a home or if you're renting an apartment, that complex has a mortgage. And if they go under, you lose your place to live just like everyone else in these foreclosures debacles. So it's affecting, eventually, the people in this industry assume that it's going to affect every single person in the United States.
Now, Susan, how did Bank of America respond to losing this case? Are they going to be making changes in their foreclosure system?
To my knowledge, they have not responded. And one of the things that the banks are really, really scared of are articles like this that are exposing the actual opinions and the goings on in court. So that's why I wrote the article and put it out there. And I'm working with Scott Staffney, who also happens to be an associate editor for the U.S. Independent, to expose these specific dealings within the court, the opinions and the documents that are evidenced in the court system, because the banks don't want everyone to know how they did it. And more cases that are won are shown on merit of how the banks are doing this. This article is one example of how the banks took this home from this gentleman by playing this game of who holds title and who holds deed and who has the legal authority to enact a foreclosure. So if more people understand the inner workings of how they're doing this, I think, and I'm sure that I know for a fact that if attorneys had this information, we wouldn't see so many victims of foreclosure. And we'd probably see the banks trying to rework and weasel their way into some other scheme because this one would not work. And that's what we need to do. We need to shine light on what might seem like minute legal details, but this is exactly how they are taking property rights and just throwing it down the toilet here.
Now, Susan, writing an article like this obviously is the first step in informing the American people about what's taking place here. Of course, coming on this program, sharing this article with our viewers is another step. But how has this information been treated by outlets, like national media outlets like the NBC, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, ABC, CBS? How have they treated this information and this ruling?
They don't. They ignore it.
So they have not done any reporting on this at all?
Absolutely not. To my knowledge, this is the originating article. There have been some local outlets here, The Stranger in Washington State, that just wrote an article and did an interview with Scott Staffney concerning this information. But to our knowledge and the knowledge of the attorneys at Staffney Trumbull Law Firm, there's been no mainstream coverage of this, even a hit piece or a denial piece. There's just
so
nothing.
When did this information come out? When did this story break?
I broke this story earlier this week, so they've had plenty of time to see it.
And when did the ruling hit?
It hit last Friday.
Okay, so this is still relatively very new. and it's creeping its way into the American media. Do you think that we'll see the larger media outlets, like I mentioned before, the national media outlets, pick up on this story?
I hope that they do. I don't know if it's in their corporate interest. They have a product to sell, and I don't know that if it's advantageous for them to go ahead and publish stories like this.
Well, Bank of America is a very large advertiser in a lot of national news programs.
Yes, they are. So it might be a conflict of interest. But that's why outlets like yours and mine need to keep pushing this information. And if the mainstream picks up on something that we report on, all the better. You know, any press is good press, because the audience will get curious enough to take a look at the actual article, the actual news broadcast, the actual document. And I think that's what you and I are hoping for.
Now, you've got this published at usindependent.com. How has the public received your information so far? Comments or everyone loves to comment on articles online. What kind of feedback have you been receiving thus far?
Gratitude. And it makes me feel very humble to have been able to bring this, because I know how disturbing it is to have your home invaded and then taken from you. And to help these people, give them some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, some sort of option. If they're in the middle of a foreclosure battle and they get in light of new evidence, that's always an argument that the prosecution or the defense can use. This information is so important, and it makes me feel it's such a deeply rooted thing where we live and where our home is, and for people to have that taken from them and use this information to maybe keep that. The audience has been extremely grateful, and they've been sending me information that I'm just not legally qualified to answer. But the good thing is that Staffney Trumbull Law Firm is able to answer that, so I've been sort of forwarding a lot of information over to that law firm.
All right, Susan, thanks for joining us today. We want to have you back on in the future to talk about some of the articles you've got. What's on the horizon for you as far as some of the stories you're covering right now?
I think one of the most important things is the meeting at Davos in Switzerland that just happened a couple of weeks ago. And I am working on an article.
Speaking of the World Economic Summit?
World Economic Forum, yes. Now, it's underreported, and that's a shame, because that's where they invest their money and get their buddies together and set up a lot of their agendas, because all of this takes money, and it takes other cooperation of other corporations in order to manifest. So there is a independent group that was set up by the World Economic Forum to set down rules and guidelines for internet governance. And I'm working on a story that will be put out in a couple of days, because it seems that members of our government are working on that as well. So we're worried about SOPA and PIPA and ACTA, and we're writing stories about that, but we're not paying attention to the ways in which they're actually controlling the internet. So I'll have that article in a couple of days.